The duo is finally back together. Doug is back from vacation. I'm back from a day off, I guess, while Doug went solo. Today, we'll go over some of the awards we'll give out for the Charlotte Hornets, the preseason awards, MVP, Sixth Man of the Year, all that stuff, and take a look at the final roster spot. All today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
Hey, there he is. It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us, making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods, and that includes YouTube. We'll see if Doug still remembers how to do this. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time? There we go. Got it. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. There's Doug Branson. You saw him yesterday. The beautiful stash and all. Go check out also his beautiful website, everyhornetsboxscore.com, and his subtext information on his Substack. I'm Walker Mayo. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. on Wes and Walker. What you got, Doug?
What? So here's a question. Everyone saw me yesterday. Did you see me yesterday? Did you get a chance to check the show out?
I checked it out a little bit. I did not watch it all the way through, but I had to watch it in between doing a lot of Panthers training camp research. It's all who's hot right now, what wide receivers are balling, what's for real, offensive line, first padded day of practice. It's all that stuff. So, but yes, I did check you out. I did check you out on a couple of takes that you had yesterday. Musa Diabate, is that how we pronounce it? I heard some of your breakdown there.
That is how we pronounce it. I just wanted to make sure that you got my memo in that show that I'll actually be out on vacation next week as well. I know I just got back from vacation, but I have some breaking news. I'm going on vacation again next week. I got to take a vacation from the vacation. If you've ever been on vacation with a toddler, you know that you need a vacation after that, maybe with some family. We're going away with some family that can maybe look after the kid a little bit so that producer Katie and I can take a little vacation from the vacation.
No, you need it. Of course, you need a break. So that is Doug, real life Doug in the flesh for at least a moment. Maybe you see some AI Doug again next week, but not real Doug. No, we're not going to see him for a little while. So while you're here, let's talk a little bit about some of the awards we want to give out in the preseason and take a look at what we might think the Hornets are going to do with this final roster spot. Doug, we know that Mitch Kupchak used to like to keep that roster spot open for just absorbing a player via trade. The question is, does Jeff Peterson want to do something with this roster spot? They need some wing depth. They got a power forward. That was something I was worried about. I mean, I don't know how much Taj Gibson just fixes that spot outright, but at least they do have a little bit of depth. They have the locker room presence. So now I think wing might be the more pressing need on this squad, which is the more pressing need for a lot of teams in the NBA. What you think? What would you like them to do with this final roster spot? What do you think they will do with this final spot?
Yeah, so look, they've got 14 rostered players. They've locked up all of their two-way guys. You know, I think expanding the two-way contracts to 3, I think gives a lot of teams more flexibility to leave that final roster spot open. I don't know about you, Walker, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jeff Peterson kept that trend going and just left that roster spot flexibility there for the Hornets to take advantage of once they get into the season and see exactly what they need. Because, yes, like, is there a backup to the backup at small forward or, you know, a wing player? Not necessarily, but they've got some guys that they can move and shift around to different positions. Luckily, I think or fortunately for the organization, they've invested in a little bit of roster flexibility around that wing position. So I'm not super concerned about them filling that spot immediately. So I would say odds-on favorite is nothing, but there are some interesting things they could go and look at, just some categories they could look at, like another shooting wing, because I think they've got, now with the Josh Green addition and hopefully Cody Martin's healthy, I think they've got a lot of defense at the wing, but shooting is still something they've got to look at. And there are guys that are still free agents right now, like Robert Covington, like Evan Fournier, and Doug McDermott, all players that they could look at that you could probably get on a veteran minimum contract to come in and just add a little shooting. The question is, Walker, do you do that before the season starts, or do you wait and see if that's going to be necessary, a.k.a. are they even going to win?
Yeah, so the shooters they have right now, if you're looking at the starting lineup, you feel good about LaMelo shot. You feel good about Brandon Miller. Seth Curry coming off of the bench. Grant Williams can shoot, so we feel good about him. Mark Williams, I don't know how good we feel about his shot. Maybe we'll see that a little bit more. Maybe you just got the wrong center hiding the jump shot under a bushel. It wasn't Nick Richards. Maybe it was Mark Williams. We'll explore that this season. But I think there's some enough here. Like, it's not a dire need, in my opinion, to the point where they desperately need to go after Doug McDermott at the expense of their defense, despite him just being a flat-out good shooter. You did lose Bertans, right? And that was at too much money. So if you went to go get some shooting, then it would be because you were able to get it at a much cheaper price. But yeah, that's a guy that could come in, and if he wasn't hitting shots, I don't know how much he was helping you, but when he was hitting shots, it was great, and he would hit the tough ones, like contested, deep three-pointers. So you're not going to get that anymore with Bertans being off of the roster, but maybe shooting, and then just maybe some size. Like that's the thing, right? I don't know if it's, yeah, like I would like a wing for sure, but also this falls under the category of every team needing what is probably the hardest archetype player to get in the NBA. So the Hornets are just another team on a very long list that would love to have extra bodies at the small forward position that's like 6'7", between 6'7" and 6'10". Like, yeah, of course, everybody needs that. So I think you're right. The odds-on favorite is probably to keep that spot open.
And you're talking about the 15th guy, the 15th contracted player on your roster, a player that's probably going, again, veteran minimum, but not only that, like a one-year deal, maybe even there's some partial guaranteeing. So, you know, we're talking about very low-risk things, but I think there is some value in getting into the season and seeing where the injuries, you know, fall within the first couple of weeks and going, okay, do we need to add a shooter, or do we need to add some defense, or do we need to add an insane veteran? Do we need to even more veterans? I know they just got Taj Gibson, but maybe they go after a guy like Patrick Beverley. Just add some more chaos, add some more sauce to the locker room. You never know. Or
that's going to be a lot.
If they did want to make a move prior to the season, I think I would like them to take a flyer on someone. So whether that's, you know, inviting Mo Gee to camp, giving him an Exhibit 10, and then converting that into a 15th contracted player, I would like that idea. Or even a guy like Amani Bates, who a lot of people, you know, loved his scoring ability coming out of college, wanted the Hornets to take a flyer on him in the draft. They didn't. Cleveland did. He's sitting out there, you know, in free agency land still. So that could be another option. What else you got?
Yeah, I mean, Amani Bates was a guy, that goes from Memphis to one of the Michigan schools and then doesn't ball out and then falls to the second round.
Yeah, but it's total flyer territory. Yeah. It's somebody that you're like, all right, we're just gonna sit there and hope that you get better, and if there are a bunch of injuries, you'll get an opportunity.
Well, I mean, if you look at the space they have now, if I'm not mistaken, they have $7.8 million in the mid-level exception.
I think that, there's like a room exception, I think. I'm not a cap wizard.
No, neither am I, but I'm pretty sure they have a 7.8 non-taxpayer mid-level exception to use, which, by the way, like that's a decent chunk of change to go get a player to be a part of your rotation. Maybe that's the thing that throws this all out of whack, Doug. They have money to go get a player that would be making the type of money that would be a part of the rotation. So if that's the case, it's all about who's out there. Yeah, and Isaac Okoro was linked to the Hornets for a while. If you just wanted some more defense, you're not helping your shooting. But if you still feel like perimeter defense is something you would love to shore up, that would make some sense. I think you could even argue that's more of a need because the shooting, we just went through some of those guys where defense is not any of the shooter's strong suit so far. So would you just combat that, balance the scale by going after an Okoro, who $7.8 million probably makes a lot of sense to play on that type of deal. I don't know who else is out there, but that's just a name that comes to mind. But maybe that's the type of profile they'd go after.
No, it makes total sense from a basketball perspective. I don't know that it makes a ton of sense from a context perspective and what we think the organization is trying to accomplish this season, which I would phrase as, accidental winning. Like if they trip and fall into a winning season, they're not going to be mad, but they're certainly not going to go all out to do whatever it takes to contend in the Eastern Conference this season. And so I think when you have Cody Martin sitting there on a contract already to invest in someone else at this point, again, given the context of what this roster is and how they feel about it, They would surprise me if the 15th guy was Isaac Okoro on the 7.8. Now, again, everything changes, Walker, if they get off to, a 10-2 start or something. And the buzz is building, and LaMelo looks like all NBA level, and Brandon Miller, does his Brandon Miller ascension thing. Then I think all bets are off. Then, there could be – but then you got to get involved in the trade market because somebody's going to go out there and get Okoro, I think, by that time.
Well, yeah, and Okoro, by the way, I actually do think he would fit the idea of taking on a project again, because it's almost threading the needle pretty nicely with someone like Okoro, who gives you a foundation of defense. But the reason he can't stay on the floor is because offensively, you just aren't really scared of him camping out in the corner and knocking down the three consistently. But if we're going for nice foundation, effort, if they like the culture of providing the guys on the roster that have a ton of effort, have a real high motor, and we're trying to fix the offensive game just a little bit to have him playable once you get further and further into the regular season and the postseason, then maybe would be threading that needle nicely. He's a restricted free agent. Maybe the Hornets are playing some, not cap gymnastics, but just like playing the game. We don't desperately need you. The Cavaliers have proven that they're not eager to give him a huge deal. So maybe you slip him something, again, like the MLE, $6 million, $7 million, something like that. And the Cavs are like, fine, whatever. I don't know, just something that could happen. It had one of the more valuable guys, I would imagine, that's still left, considering we've already gone through like a month and a half, couple months of free agency.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the free agent list, and it's not a lot. I mean, there are a few players that I think are still going to float around to some winning organizations before they entertain the idea of going to the Hornets. But there's not a lot out there. Now, if you did want a two-way wing, there is a guy sitting out there. Would he take the rim exception after making so much money the past couple of seasons? His name is Gordon Hayward. He is still a free agent, folks.
Oh, my God.
If you wanted to get nostalgic, you could go for Bismack Biyombo as well for the third time. You could go SU Svi. There's a guy playing for the South Sudan team right now who is lighting it up at the Olympics. His name is JT Thor. We could go more Thor. You think the Hornets are regretting that?
Have you gotten rid of the T-shirt yet? Is it still alive?
Oh, it's still up. Yeah, if you want to buy it, it's absolutely still up. Now, have I watched a minute of South Sudan basketball? I have not. But,
well, I mean, they played USA, right? And JT Thor balled out against Team USA, and they'll be playing again against USA this next game. So we're going to get more Thor, whether you like it or not. You're getting more Thor.
I love it.
I just don't know if it's going to be in a Hornets uniform. Last thing, house cleaning on Isaac Okoro's shooting. That was kind of the MO on him coming out of Auburn, but three-point shot last year, 39% on 3 attempts per game, 36% 2 years ago on 2 attempts per game. So it's not terrible at all. In fact, I don't know how much the Cavs believe it's real, but
you're really selling yourself on this mid-show. I am. By the way, I haven't watched a minute of USA basketball either. Wake me up at the gold medal game. I'll watch it then.
Okay. You'll be on vacation by then. You won't be watching it then either.
I'm not watching anything on vacation.
Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Let's give out some eyelids.
Yeah, you will be doing that. Let's give out some preseason awards. The Hornets MVP. Who do we expect to win Sixth Man of the Year? Rookie of the Year? Is it a foregone conclusion? We'll get to that all in just a moment here on Locked On Hornets. Isaac Okoro, MVP. I'm telling you. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time? Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And I told you about the deals, last-minute, flash, and zone deals, all-in pricing, seat views, lowest price guarantee, and Game Time ticket coverage, too. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, Locked On NBA, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Doug, let's give out some preseason awards. So you kicked this idea to me. We got a bunch of the NBA style awards that we can just give to some Charlotte Hornets. Who's going to be the MVP of this team? Sixth man of the year for this specific team. Where do you want to start, Doug? Lead us off.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do this segment two different ways because we didn't really talk about how we were going to land on this. I mean, we could talk about this just from the perspective of which player has the best percentage shot of getting the award, even if that percentage shot is .01. Like we're talking about NBA MVP, right? I mean, there's not a lot of Hornets that are going to contend for that, but we could talk about just which player is going to get closest to that, and maybe by virtue of that, we are talking about what that player means to the team in general.
It's funny you brought it. I thought about the same thing. There is a lot of overlap, at least with the way that I dissected it. There are some differences, though. I mean, because part of the game is trying to figure out what writers usually do. If you go back to precedent and think, okay, we might have a different definition of who the most important player off the bench is, but usually it goes to the spark plug guy. And if that's the case, your answer might be different nationally than it is with who you think is the best guy off of the bench. So, yeah, maybe just answer it both ways here, Doug. Where do you want to lead?
Well, let's start. I'm going to give a little NBA history here. We'll start with the very first award handed out in NBA history, and that is, strangely, the All-Star Game MVP, not the MVP of the league, not Coach of the Year, not any of these other awards. We're talking All-Star Game MVP in 1951, given to Ed Macauley, I think, if I just looked at Wikipedia correctly. Yeah, Ed Macauley, center forward for the Boston Celtics. So All-Star MVP, Walker, what do you think?
That's a great trivia question that no one would get right. Mm-hmm. You could say it's a Celtic, and it would throw you way off. LaMelo Ball's the easy answer. I'll go with him. Flash guy, I think, has a good shot of making the All-Star game. When he's at peak power, if he's healthy, I'll go with LaMelo. I'm not sure Brandon is a shoe-in for the All-Star game next year, but it's a possibility. If I think really the only two possibilities are LaMelo and Brandon to get to the All-Star game, LaMelo's already made one, so we know that he can do it as long as he's healthy. Plus, he's got the flash. And by the way, remember, he was good in that All-Star game. It was fun to watch and put up some good stats. He's my answer.
Yeah, I think he's got the best shot of making an All-Star game just by virtue of he already has made one, but also like his comeback story would, I think, bring some attention to him, some attention to the Hornets. I think it would open up NBA eyeballs, right? So I think he would have a narrative if his performance if he just comes out of the gate gangbusters and stays healthy. I think he'll have a good narrative to make the All-Star game, okay? He'll probably backdoor sort of situation, maybe another injury situation, but I think he could make it. And once he's there, you're right, he took the game seriously, which was strangely not something that Kemba Walker did until some of his later All-Star games, but his first couple of All-Star games, he was just sort of in a happy to be here type of attitude, whereas LaMelo Ball, he wanted to show off at the All-Star game. It feels like his kind of event, and so yeah, absolutely, it's LaMelo Ball.
All right, what's the next award?
All right, the next award we could just go chronologically. In 1953, they handed out not the MVP award, not the Coach of the Year award, not the Executive of the Year or Defensive Player of the Year. No, it was the second award handed out in NBA history was the Rookie of the Year award in 1953, and that went to let's see if I can pull the list up here. That went to Don Meineke of the Fort Wayne Pistons in the 1952-53 season.
It's amazing. So, Rookie of the Year. The real question is it a runaway for Tajon Salaun?
Right.
I mean, I don't know, man. I'm clearly going Tajon. If you were to force me to bet, I would bet Tajon Salaun. Like, is there a world where KJ Simpson, is it crazy to say that KJ Simpson is a better basketball player than Salaun is right now?
It's not a crazy thing to say when you're talking about NBA fundamental, being able to hang on the court on both ends, knowing what you're doing. Yeah, KJ Simpson is out ahead of Salaun right now. Salaun will quickly and mightily overtake him in the next season or two.
So do you have this Devontae Graham type role where maybe in a couple of different ways, right, where they tank at the end, but then they actually end up surprising some people? Remember when they had Dwayne Bacon, Devontae Graham, the young bugs just go out there and start winning? inexplicably. Like, what's going on? We were supposed to lose here, and now we're winning with all these young guys, and we were going with the fresh legs theory. So is KJ Simpson that type of player? Does he survive a couple of like guard injuries and then goes in there and surprises? I think there's a world where KJ Simpson like could come away with this, and I don't think it's all that crazy. But yeah, I would go with Salaun because I think the path for run and logged minutes is clearly a little easier for a guy that's on contract and not a two-way contract.
And that's why it's crazy to think KJ Simpson would have more of a shot than Salaun. And again, we're talking about low percentages, I think, because they went Salaun. Now, if they had gone Connect or if they had gone, really any other direction except for Salaun, we could have a serious discussion about this because I don't know if you watched Sar in the summer league, but he looked pretty terrible. Risache wasn't bad, but he didn't. Yeah, I mean,
he had some good moments.
He had some good moments. Yeah, and so did Buzelis. So I think it's going to be a really interesting Rookie of the Year more interesting than last season for sure, when it was obviously going to be Victor's to lose.
It's funny because it feels so wide open. And it doesn't feel like we have a shot.
I think they should let Brandon contend again. I think
that's what I'm saying. Yes,
it was unfair that he had to not only go up against Victor Wembanyama. That's unfair in and of itself. But then you also have to go up against Chet Holmgren. Like, he should have been the runner-up, but they cheated Chet into the whole award. And
the Ben Simmons angle, the Blake Griffin angle. Yes.
Yeah, like it's just absurd. So I think they should give Brandon Miller another shot. But barring that, I think Salaun has, when you just look at the roster construction, the Hornets have so many point guards. Now, maybe they deal Micic or whatever. Obviously, Reggie Jackson's gone now, but still they have so many guards that you would have to have really a devastating set of injuries that would result in KJ Simpson getting minutes, or he might get some back half minutes, if the Hornets decide to get into tank mode. But Salaun is really like one injury away from getting a decent role as a bench player, and he's 2 injuries away from you going, God, do we have to start this guy? Like, so, I think, Tijan Salaun, he's got the path to the minutes, and I would say I would bet more on Tijan Salaun, like it just suddenly clicking. Like if he gets an early roll, even if it's small and he makes a bunch of mistakes, like it all of a sudden clicking for him and him being able to use some of those physical gifts that he has to create some advantages, and it being a weaker rookie class, I'm not going to, it's going to be a long shot, but I'm not saying it's an impossibility.
Yeah. I just don't think the skill set, we want points. We want somebody that can fill it up, and that's not going to be his thing.
He can do it in transition. If the Hornets decide to run as fast as Coach Lee has hinted that they're going to run, I mean, that does, like if this were a, half-court only team and they were going to slow things down, that doesn't suit Salaun. But if they are going to get out and run, particularly the bench unit, that actually does suit Salaun a little bit.
All right, you want to go with one more award?
Before we go to the next segment, let's go to Defensive Player of the Year. Now, this is not in order. Most Valuable Player, we're going to save that for the end. That was the next award, 1956. We're going to shoot on down to the Defensive Player of the Year award, which wasn't given out until 1983. Now, you might know who was the winner of this award first.
Okay. I mean, I don't think it would have been Akeem at that point. I don't know. Who is it?
It is Sidney Moncrief, shooting guard for the Milwaukee Bucks, followed by Mark Eaton and then Alvin Robertson in 85-86 getting
a couple guards, Bucks guards too. Okay. Defensive Player of the Year. I think there's some overlap here for me, Doug. So I think both nationally, the guy that has the best shot of receiving this award and who I think will deserve it even if we just look at something Hornet-centric, I think that answer is Mark Williams. So this is going to be a Rudy Gobert type of award. The numbers are going to be better with him on the floor defensively. It's just a matter of how dramatic those numbers are. And if we go back to Charles Lee being somebody that we buy into, improving the level of all these players, they've hitched their wagon to Mark Williams. He's the guy that's been in the Celtics locker room celebrating a title alongside Brandon Miller and Grant Williams because of some familiarity. But they have told you, Mark is healthy. He's going to be ready to go. And Mark is somebody that we believe in. So if the numbers are going to be better with him defensively like they have been when he's been on the floor the last couple of seasons, and the block shots thing, we like to give this award to centers historically. I think Mark is the guy. You can make an argument for some other people, but I think Mark is the easy and the right answer. But I'm buying into Mark, man. I feel like he's going to be a good NBA player.
Yeah, it's strange. This award did evolve into a center power forward award, really beginning with, Eaton won it the third year, but it really began with Hakeem and Mutombo and then Mourning, and then Ben Wallace won it 4 times. Dwight Howard won it 3 times. Rudy Gobert's won it 1,000 times. So, yes, it's going to be difficult for me to make an argument for anyone but Mark Williams. I think the only other guy that you can make an argument for would be Josh Green. I think he's going to get a starting role on this team. There have been some whispers that Dallas may have been holding Josh Green back a little bit, that his role there wasn't exactly, one to highlight Josh Green. So if he gets that opportunity and he buys into Charles Lee's system, then I think Josh Green, he's got the body for sure, the defensive versatility, the sort of, I know Marcus Smart's kind of a point guard, but could he recreate some of the Marcus Smart magic that snuck him an award in 21-22? I think there's a possibility. He's got some stuff to work out in terms of like pick and roll defense. That was something that Nick Angstedt from the Locked On Mavs podcast, pointed out to me, that sometimes decision making in the pick and roll, I think, is what he's got to work on. But in terms of the body type, he's perfect. I'm going to buy in on Josh Green, Defensive Player of the Year.
Okay, maybe Josh Green is in store for another award. You'll have to find out. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
MIP, 6th Man of the Year, MVP. We still have to get to all those bullet points you see next to the fire emoji. That's coming up next in the last segment of LOH. Doug, where are we going next? What award do you want to give out?
Let's go to 6th Man of the Year.
6th Man of the Year for me, kind of a tough one. I'm going Trey Mann, and I think this is also at the intersection of both local and national. The other option is Grant to me, but people love Trey Mann, and he's a fun basketball player. I think he's going to survive the great guard collection / then purge of 2024. Like, if you think Micic is going to be out of here, I don't think Trey Mann is the guy that gets traded. It's possible, but I think Mann ends up staying. I think Mann clearly is somebody that has a better path towards playing than a KJ Simpson, Cody Martin, who's often injured. If we put Brandon Miller in this hybrid 2-3 role with Josh Green also starting, I don't think Trey is going to start like he did last year when there were so many injuries. So I think he's going to be the guy. He's got fun defensive plays to go along with the fun offense. And plus, in the spirit of the award, this thing usually goes to the spark plug off of the bench, the guy that can fill it up. Also was dishing it out a lot better last year. Trey Mann is my answer.
That's a good answer. If they trade Mann, then I think you could look at Vasa Micic. It's strange that Micic is still a Hornet, right? I really assumed by now he would not be a Hornet. So now I'm starting to think, are the Hornets just planning to just sort of grit their teeth through this Micic thing and just have him as a valuable piece? And honestly, even with Mann, I think there were plenty of minutes for both of those guys last season. Obviously, no LaMelo. But I think there's a way to work both of those guys into the rotation. And Micic, if his shooting is improved, and that's a big if, but if it has, then he's a triple-double threat. And so I could see him putting together a season. And look, if the Hornets are going to improve and make all of your dreams come true and be the 6th seed next year and avoid the play-in, honestly, you've got to have some of these surprise, wow, this guy came out of nowhere and got into contention for awards that he had no business getting into. I could see Micic doing that. I think Grant Williams is going to have a huge role on this team, but I'm not sure that he fits the profile of somebody that typically wins this award anymore. He fits the profile of somebody that used to win this award many years ago, but in terms of all the dirty work that Grant is asked to do, I'm not sure that's as valued in this particular award anymore. But if you've got a guy off the bench who is a triple-double threat every night, and I think Micic can be that guy, then that's got 6th Man of the Year written all over it.
Yeah, I agree. It's just a matter of who you think they keep and who could be more exciting.
And let's just say this. We are in the world of big ifs right now. We are playing with our imagination at this point and saying, what if Guy went into the laboratory and, what if Jekyll went into the laboratory and became Hyde? I mean, that's what would have to happen for some of these guys, including Mark Williams becoming Defensive Player of the Year, because you're not going to give Defensive Player of the Year to block shots, great, but if you're not a force on the defensive board, you're not getting Defensive Player of the Year, and Mark still has that to prove.
I mean, yeah, like the numbers, yeah, like I know we can watch it. Like what will happen nationally is they're going to look at the offensive rebounding percentage being among the best in the NBA. They're going to look at the block shots. They're going to look at the on-off numbers, and they're going to say, buddy, Mark Williams, like, makes a pretty big impact. But I know the defensive rebounds, they need to be better. He needs to be more physical. But we know how, right? Like when we're looking at whoever it is out west, okay, we're looking at the box score. We're looking at Basketball Reference and then trying to remember some clips, probably some highlights that we've seen on Twitter. So if that's the case, and then you come across the Mark Williams Celtics game and then you look at Basketball Reference, he's going to get some votes. So I that's the reason why I would go with Mark. But you're right. Like there's still a ways to go.
Okay,
What's
rapid fire. Award? Most improved player.
I think Mark is the answer. Like I'm buying in. I think for me, you could go Brandon Miller, where we've done this thing where we love to go with the guy that's clearly on the verge of breakout, that is really good, and then they go to all-star level, and then we give that award to that player, or even all-NBA level. Like it'll be Giannis up there, right, who ends up, having a big improvement. I think we did this with Luka. Like we've done this with some of the stars before. So Brandon Miller, I think, is another guy. But I just think if Mark is healthy, if they're continuing to put him out in front of a lot of the players that they want to develop, if you can finally figure out a way for if LaMelo and Mark are running the two-man game, if he's giving you the second chance points, and if Charles Lee is letting Mark shoot it, we'll have to see it. But if he's letting him shoot it and Mark knocks him down, then Hornets-wise, I think Mark Williams could be the guy that's the MIP. Josh Green, Brandon Miller were the other two options that I had here, though. You going somewhere else, Doug?
I'm going LaMelo Ball. I'm going the guy coming off of injury. I think, if he puts together a unquestionable all-star bid in the early season, which is tough to do, by the way, because a lot of the all-star bids come from the previous season, which he has nothing to really – I mean, he has something. He had, a few games there, and he looked like an all-NBA player for a stretch there. But, yeah, coming off of injury, if he stays healthy all season long and puts up, 25 points a game, near 10 assists a game, and, 7 rebounds, like it's going to be tough, I think, to make an argument for a lot of other players in most improved. I'm not sure about Brandon Miller. Honestly, he put up too good of a rookie season, I think. I mean, it's a compliment.
No, but that's what they love to do, right? Because I think with LaMelo, if they did the NFL thing and had comeback player of the year, then this is what LaMelo would win. And he would be in great contention to actually win this, not only just trying to create some hypothetical. Now, LaMelo would be one of the favorites to win it for comeback player of the year. But most improved, because he already has an all-star, we already know the numbers he's capable of putting up. I'm not sure that he gets MIP. It's just it feels like he's already done most. I don't know. Maybe LaMelo can do it, but I think Brandon can do it as well if they go to just some other stratosphere.
Well, and I think a dark horse for this, and we didn't mention him in Sixth Man of the Year, but if a few injuries go his way and he's learned a lot this summer, NSJ for both of these awards. I think he'd have to come in, and again, he'd have to do something he hasn't to this point shown, but I think he's got an opportunity, if he gets into a six-man role and just starts to light it up and shoots 43% from three on 6-7 attempts, then, and it's not, again, not very likely, but not out of the realm of possibility. All right, Sportsmanship Award.
Oh, God. Sportsman. I wasn't ready for the sportsmanship. The guy that's going to win, if we're going with Media Award, I think this is Grant all over it.
Rick Bonnell Award, Sportsmanship Award.
Yep.
I would throw him into the Social Justice Champion Award. That's a newer award that they've been giving out. He's all over the community. Grant Williams all the way for these nice guy awards.
Grant Williams, yeah, that's the best answer I have for you.
Clutch Player of the Year.
LaMelo. Maybe Brandon if we're going big shot, but Brandon, I will change it. I'll go with Brandon Miller because his rookie season, he did hit a lot of big shots, and this was even after some poor shooting performances. He kept shooting the basketball in the fourth quarter, and this was early on, like game 6, 7, 8, where he would hit some big fourth quarter shots when they needed it. So I'll go Brandon Miller here.
It'll be really interesting. It's one of the more interesting questions I have is in late game situations, who does this team give the ball to? Is it LaMelo Ball? Or like they did early in last season when LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges were healthy, LaMelo was acting as a decoy a lot and getting Miles Bridges open shots, which he knocked down to in that Celtics game right as he was coming back. So I think you can throw Miles into this. It's all going to come down to who do they look at, because it used to be Terry Rozier. Terry Rozier was the guy for many, many years, and now they've got to figure out who that guy is. It doesn't necessarily have to be LaMelo Ball, so I think you're right in looking at Brandon Miller, but I think Miles Bridges a contender there as well. And so Hustle Award real quickly, and then we'll do MVP.
Oh, man. Yeah, I was not ready for these. You went deep into the bag. So if I'm going to – Josh Green seems like the easy answer.
Yeah.
Cody Martin's not going to be healthy enough. I'll go Josh Green.
I'll go NSJ, man. Did you see him in Summer League? He was all over the place. He was fighting over screens, getting blocked shots. I mean, NSJ, he is the quintessential hustle guy right now. He's trying to stay in the league. All right, finally, most improved player. Who has the
most valuable player?
Oh, what did I say? Most improved?
Most improved,
valuable
yes.
player. Who has the highest percentage shot of getting most valuable player in the NBA?
You know, I did an episode on LaMelo Ball last week before we aired AI Doug and Real Walker Mail talking about the all-NBA potential for LaMelo. Doug, you continue to just look at what he's accomplished when he's been out there on the court. The dude is amazing, and he changes a lot of what you can expect from this team offensively. And it doesn't matter what coach you're talking about. It can be James Borrego. It can be Steve Clifford. I don't think that's going to change with Charles Lee. LaMelo, you just brought up some of the numbers that he could possibly put up if he's healthy to win MIP, right? 25, 10, and 6. That's a monster box score. Plus, if the Hornets are better than what most people expect, if they hit the over on the Vegas over-under, if they're flirting with a play-in spot, actually get into it and compete in the play-in, to me, this is LaMelo. And I wonder if we have to wait one more year before we really have the Brandon has overtaken this team question, which is there. It's already there. But give me LaMelo to be the MVP of this team, especially if you think Charles Lee is going to have LaMelo buy in more defensively. At that point, it doesn't take a whole lot for LaMelo to go to a different level. It's classic finishing at the rim better. He got to the rim okay, but it's classic finishing at the rim. If you can do that at an average level, man, your points what? You're talking about 2 more points per game. And if your defense goes up to a respectable level, now you're not going to have like terrible defensive metrics on that end of the floor. That's all you need. And if he can do everything else that he's already been able to accomplish, then he's the MVP candidate for me.
All right, let me give you his numbers in November. And this, you're counting in this November haul, you're counting the game against Orlando where he got injured and only played 15 minutes. You're also counting a couple of his tune-up games. Remember, last season it took him like 5 games to get really back to LaMelo when he scored 30 points against Dallas on 23 shots. So you're counting a couple of those games as well. His numbers in November were this: 27 points per game. He had 8 assists per game and 5.3 rebounds on 21 shots a game, 47.6% from the field, almost 42% from 3, and on nearly 4 free throw attempts, he was 86.7%, and over a steal a game. Like those are monster numbers. Yes, it's absolutely LaMelo. If he has the best percentage shot, if he does that for an entire season, and Brandon and a couple of things also have to happen. And the Hornets are sitting at the end of the year, and they're the 3 or 4 seed. I mean, we're talking crazy, folks. Summer is for feelings. Preseason is for reason. If we're talking crazy, then I don't know if he's going to win it. But damn it, if the Hornets are the 3rd seed and he is the leader of the team on those kind of numbers, he will definitely get some votes.
The 3rd seed. Yes, he definitely will.
I love that I'm capping. I can't even go to one. I have to cap it somewhere, right?
I was not laughing at that.
I capped it at 3rd because the Hornets in 2015-16, the last time they made the playoffs, were just a few tiebreakers away from being the 3rd seed. But of course, they had that Hornets luck and fell all the way to the 6th seed and had to play the Miami Heat. But
I was laughing at the opposite of you going up all the way to third. Like you're saying, it's ridiculous. I'm not like, no, I'm laughing that you have allowed third place to exist in this world that we speak of.
But that is the point of these two segments, folks, is that if you think we're talking crazy about any of this stuff, it might not be this season, but when the Hornets finally do get into contention, it will be because several players, and Clifford talked about this a lot during both of his runs here. It takes guys who you went, oh, I had no idea they were going to be in contention for Sixth Man of the Year, Most Improved, MVP. It takes those guys suddenly, almost like magic, getting into contention for those awards, and it will be magic, and it will feel great, and I hope it happens this season. And if it doesn't by game 20, then then get Most Improved Tank award ready to go, because the Hornets are going to bail on it.
That'll do it for the preseason awards given out to certain members of the Charlotte Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods, and that includes YouTube. Make sure you go visit Doug's website, everyhornetsboxscore.com. There you can also find the subtext information. And I'm Walker Mail. Make sure you listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. If you're a Panthers fan, we're out at Panthers training camp today, and we're going to be out there at Clutch Kitchen and Poorhouse, baby. So come by, say what's up, get a beer, do all the good stuff that you do at a bar, except for getting a fight if you're one of those crazy people. Don't do that. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.
Well, now people are going to do it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.